We're wicket keepers. We love standing up to the wickets.
Were plunged as an 18-year-old straight into the first team.
Cricket wasn't on my remit of something to do as a career.
Standing back, you were immaculate.
You need something to fill that void. That's to your right. You need to catch them. I remember he hit Tim Curtis on the head. It looked like his brain had exploded. I could tell which delivery he was going to bowl by the line he bowled. And I think that was the one fastest spell of bowling that I've ever kept wicket for.
Okay.
Catch that? Could you try again?
It's a bit of Gary Lineker coming through. Flat Jack, we used to call him, didn't we?
Correct, yeah. It was a tough period, Walt. It was a really tough period. I think it's my most important role. There was one pivotal point which said to me, you need to hand the reins over now.
Hello and welcome along to another edition of Beyond the Boundary. My guest this time around is a Lancashire stalwart, a wicket-keeper who played for 20 years for the Red Rose, a record breaker, captain as well, and virtually ever present over those 20 years. And what's more, he's been present ever since he retired from the game. It is, of course, Warren Hegg. Good to see you, Warren. You have been around now since, I think, probably 1984. So you made your first team debut in '86, but played a little bit before that. It's great to see you. Do you ever get tired of the old place?
Do you know what? Well, I still get that feeling as you come through Stretford and come past Kellogg's. You know, we talk about, I always come past Kellogg's. And what memory sticks in my mind was the smell of the cornflakes being made and that butterflies in your stomach, knowing that you're coming to, to Old Trafford as it was then, the home of Lancashire cricket, to play cricket, even in them formative years, '84, playing club and ground games, the odd second 11 game, the under 25 games as they were in those days. And I still get that feeling now, 30 years later.
You had a meteoric rise into the first team. You didn't play very much second team cricket at all. You were plunged as an 18-year-old straight into the first team. And I used to feel next to you at slip, and I could see that you were, everybody's nervous when they start playing, but you especially so. Did it feel that way to you?
Massively, yeah, because I think even if you take it back a few more years as well, at the age of 15, 16, cricket wasn't on my remit of something to do as a career. So to be 3 years later playing with the likes of the Lancashire stalwarts, Lloyd, Hughes, Simmons, Allott, Fowler, and all of a sudden thrown into that arena with those stalwarts and legends of Lancashire cricket, as an 18-year-old, I was a blithering wrecker on some occasions.
Well, you covered it up well. You were nervous and you were very young. But what was the biggest what was the biggest change up for you from second team of club cricket coming into the first team? Was it just the pace of the game?
Yeah, I think so. I think a half volley in under 13s cricket is the same as a half volley in test match cricket, but it just happens a hell of a lot faster and a hell of a lot less than it does it in that level. So coming into that environment as a professional cricketer playing at that level was something that I really enjoyed as well. I really enjoyed the challenge because, as you know, as a youth, you've got no fear. You've got no yardstick to measure things by. So playing against these great players on great wickets and on test grounds was something that I loved, and I embraced every minute of it and enjoyed every minute, even though I was nervous. Well,
you were nervous, but you were a quick learner, and you never looked back from the moment you made your debut. I don't think you hardly missed a game, except if you were injured, and that happened infrequently. And I think it's fascinating when you look back on your career, the cricketers that you've played with, and especially kept wicket too. Some of the finest bowlers that have ever played the game. I'm thinking of Wasim, Akram, Matai Muralitharan, Patterson, arguably the fastest in the world. Graham Gooch said he bowled him the fastest spell he'd ever faced. Andrew Flintoff, James Anderson. So those names roll off the tongue as some of the top. So I'd like to just delve into that a little bit if we can, and the challenges that you came up against. Let's start with Wasim Akram, because left arm quicks are notoriously difficult to bat against. and they throw up challenges to the wicketkeeper as well.
Very much so, and was, like you say, probably the greatest left-arm seamer, if not of all time. And the different thing with Was is that his arm was so fast. His arm was so fast. He could come in off a 20-yard run up, he could change it down to a 10-yard run up, but his arm would stay the same. A real fast arm action that hit the pitch hard. Late swing, in swing, out swing. He bowled bouncers, he bowled Yorkers, he bowled reverse swing on real flat wickets. So I think as a wicketkeeper, you had to adapt very, very quickly to how you were going to keep to Wasim Akram on certain wickets. And what I tried to do early in my career is come a little bit wider. So
more to the offside.
Yeah, so I remember pushing the likes of first, second slip away a little bit, just to give me a little bit more of a sighter of how he was going to come in, because as you know, Was, and you played with him and have watched him a lot. He utilised the crease really, really well. He got close to the umpire. He jumped out wide. So me coming a little bit wider helped me to get a good vision. And then I think it was down to backing yourself to catch it when it was nicked.
Well, reflexes and ability.
Yeah.
But if you're standing wider, and we all know Was was a mean swinger of ball, late swing. You've already mentioned that. Yeah. What happens if he flicked one down the leg side? You'd have to get your skates on then.
Absolutely, and I think we used to giggle at it. And you take a left-handed diving catch to an in-swinger that he'd not quite got right, pitched on leg stump and kept going, and you dive one-handed catch, as we used to say, one for the crowd and one for the cameras. But it's as a young lad in that era, I was able to do that and back myself to anything down that leg side or an inside nick. You'd have to back yourself, as you've already said, on instinct of grabbing that catch.
Well, those are the hardest ones, aren't they? Inside edge. I played alongside you and fielded alongside you for 6 years, and I can't remember, this is testimony to your ability, I cannot remember you dropping a catch stood back. You may have dropped the odd one stood up, but anybody does. But standing back, you were immaculate.
Yeah, it was something, I think, it's something that I worked hard on. Well, it's something that I worked really, really hard on, of taking those nicks. You're a keeper, that's your job. You've got to catch 98, 99% of balls that are nicked. You shouldn't really drop a ball stood back that's straight to you. You shouldn't do as a wicket keeper. There's some occasions we played in that final at Lords against Worcester, and it was the Hegg Akram showdown, wasn't it?
Yeah,
and I remember 1990, and we talked about it, and we told the Hegg, probably one of the greatest batsmen around of that era, scoring runs left, right and centre, one-day cricket, four-day cricket. And I remember him nicking Was to me, and it was a sharp catch up to the right. And still to this day, me being me, and I worry about things like, what happens if I'd have dropped that at Lords in a Benson Hedges Cup final in front of thousands of people? And I still, when I see footage of that game, I still get nervous about it now.
Well, many's the time I remember you catching a catch like that appeared to come at you a bit quicker, and you went, "Oh, blimey, that came quick," but you never dropped it.
No, we had some fun in them days, like you say. I had lots and lots of experience by me. First slip, second slip, third slip. You played for a period of my career with you, who would bail me out a few times and catch into your left off the right-hander. I remember Clive Rice. Clive
Rice, there's a photo of that somewhere.
There is,
in the pavilion. And
I remember, tongue-in-cheek, you said to me, "That's to your right, you need to catch them." Or words to that effect.
But that was interesting, though, because Clive Rice used to give himself room, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Now, when a batsman gives himself room, for a keeper, that means that you probably stay slightly leg side.
Yeah.
Which is what happened then, because you look at that photo, he's played that shot from probably leg stump.
Yeah, I remember it vividly to this day. It was, of all the games and all the nicks that we've had to take, I remember that nick because it flew.
Yeah,
it flew. A wicket here at Old Trafford wasn't the quickest in the world, and it flew. We were stood close.
It's off Mike Watkinson, I think.
Was it off Winker? Yeah. And I couldn't remember the bowler, but I remember you took it to your left-hand side, which is, you could have easily let it go, and then the blame would have been on me. So you bailed me out on that one.
Okay, so Wasim, difficult, but you get used to it. And when you say it's difficult to keep to somebody like that, how long did you reckon it took you to become well, I'll use the word comfortable.
Yeah, I think it took the first season. Because
Really?
He's
That long?
Yeah, definitely the first season before I became comfortable with his action. And as we played more and more seasons together with Was, I could see what he was thinking, the way he bowled the ball. I remember he used to have that really rhythmical wrist that I knew then that he was trying to bowl in swing or maybe outswing with the reverse swing. So I knew that what he was trying to do. When he came round the wicket with an old ball here at Old Trafford against the right-hander, I knew that his two stop balls there were going to be firing into your big toe as a right-hander, or he was going to hold it back a bit and look to reverse swing it away from the right-hander, which it really defies the laws of cricket science, doesn't it?
It does.
A left arm round the wicket bowler.
Should never be able to swing it away.
Should never
from
be able
the
to do it, but he did, and he was unplayable. And there's so many bits of footage from the archives that show him bowling people off stump, thinking the ball's going to come in and protect themselves against the LBW.
I think the most famous one was it Alan Lamb in the World Cup final.
Exactly. That's
Couldn't believe it, could he?
Exactly. That's never happened in cricket. Richard Blakey in a Rosie's game here. I remember him bowling Richard Blakey round the wicket, hitting off stump, swinging in and then out on the reverse, and it was unplayable.
I
Okay.
didn't catch that. Could you try again?
Oh, good stuff. We like that.
He said, I
Siri,
didn't catch that.
Siri, you didn't catch what?
We're talking about cricket and catching. That's amazing. These watches are incredible. Sorry about that, guys.
No, we'll carry on regardless. It's a bit of Gary Lineker coming through. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about Wasim. Lancashire, let's not forget, that period, sort of late 80s, had two of the best opening bowlers in Akram, who played, but Patrick Patterson was also on the staff as an overseas bowler. Now, he was quicker than Akram, but a different kettle of fish altogether.
He was, and he was ferocious, wasn't he? Pato, see him stripped off in those days in the late 80s. He was like a Mike Tyson physique to him. He had muscles on muscles. He looked a magnificent specimen, and I must admit, we used to call him Speed, didn't we? And I speak to Mark Ramprakash now, and he says, I'll never forget the days in those late 80s where all I could see was you as a diminutive little 5'7" stumpy wicketkeeper stood 25 yards back saying, "Come on, Speed, let's." And he said, but a million miles an hour it felt like to batsmen, and he hit the pitch so hard.
Didn't he bowl the heaviest ball? I think that was certainly the heaviest ball I ever caught at slip. So it must have felt the same to you.
Definitely, and I think we cast our minds back to that Worcester game, Lancashire Worcester again, and he opened the bowling then. And I think that was the one fastest spell of bowling that I've ever kept wicket for. We must have been 25, 26 yards back and flying through at a million miles an hour.
He hit Graham Hick on the head. You mentioned Graham Hick before. He hit him on the head without him moving. Didn't move.
That's exactly right, yeah. And he also hit Tim Curtis in the first over of the game. It was when the helmets were made out of a shiny plastic white paint instead of the cloth that they have nowadays. And I remember he hit Tim Curtis on the head, and it looked like his brain had exploded because the paint just went away.
Clouds of white dust.
Clouds of and he was frighteningly fast. And I can only imagine what it must have been like to face him in a test match when there's 5 or 6 slips and 2 gullies and a short leg, and he's bowling at 100 miles an hour. It must have been horrific, but a brilliant experience and a brilliant experience for me as a wicketkeeper to keep to that speed, because he doesn't get any quicker.
Jimmy Anderson, a young Jimmy Anderson. You were getting towards the end of your career when Jimmy came on the scene, but you were captain then as well.
Yeah.
Did you, around that time, 2002, 2003, did you, well, nobody could have foreseen him doing what he's done now, quite obviously, but you must have noticed that there was a talent here. Definitely
with Jimmy from day one, really. It's very similar to Andrew Flintoff. There's two players that I've been lucky enough to share a field with, have come through as young players, that from the minute they walk into this environment, that you knew that they were going to go
They look
places.
natural.
Yeah, and Jimmy was one of them. He had pace. He had real raw pace. He had the ability to take the ball away from the right-handed batsman, which is always, as a bowler, is always a massive asset. And he was raw, and he had that aura of attitude about him. And I think at that stage, the thought was in the dressing room that let's not take any of these assets away from him. Let him go. Let's protect him by setting the fields that, one, he's going to get wickets, and two, he's going to protect his runs so he's not getting downbeat and he keeps running in and bowling fast. And he was brilliant. He was brilliant as a teammate, brilliant as a captain, because you could throw the ball to him. One spell he bowled out, I'm not sure who he bowled, but he bowled out somebody at Blackpool on a featherbed slow wicket, bowled the speed of sound, reverse swing, outswing, in swing, immaculate line and length. And I think from then on, we thought this boy's going to go a long way.
He'd always got the control. Actually, that's something that people tend to forget. Did he always swing the ball away? Was that his stock ball?
I think so, yeah.
Did he just rely on his pace early doors?
It was pace, but he had that ability to take it away. I don't know if he knew what he was doing, and he'll probably be the first to say, yeah, I just used to run in and whack the pitch and bowl fast because that's what I did. From those days, from those early days, I think he learned then that this was going to be a real potent weapon in his ability, and to take the ball away from the right-hander at pace is key.
You've already mentioned Andrew Flintoff. In his England guise, he was a game changer. Was it the same at Lancashire? And people, I don't know, people have this perception of Flintoff as a maybe primarily a batsman. I don't know, maybe not. But did he had pace, serious pace?
He was right up there, Walt. He was right up there with the fastest bowlers that I've ever kept wicket for, and he got better and better as a bowler. He was raw and big and fast and hit the pitch hard. But as he got older, he knew exactly what he was doing. 6'3", 6'4" in Fred, bearing down on you with a little red or white cricket ball in his hand was lethal. And again, a spell here that I can recall bowling at Dominic Cork. Against Derbyshire.
Everybody loved bowling.
Yeah, I think every bowler used to bowl 4 or 5 yards faster at Dominic Cork.
Poor old Dom. Yeah.
But he bowled the speed of sound, and again, Fred had that ability when he was on song, and when it was pure Andrew Flintoff as a cricketer, and his head was in the game, bowling fast away swing, and yeah, horrible to face, and no doubt.
So standing back's easy, isn't it? I mean, basically, it's easy. We're sitting here.
I wouldn't disagree with you. No, I wouldn't disagree.
I'm being slightly flippant. But we've talked about 4 of the best quick bowlers that there have been. I think it's well acknowledged that the test of a wicket-keeper comes when you have to stand up to the stumps, to a quality spinner, and there's no bigger quality spinner than Murali. So how did you go about keeping to him, knowing that the majority of batsmen who faced him couldn't read him, couldn't play him? Because you have to do this. Yeah, you have to do the same.
It was a bit similar for me for the first 2 years. I was relying on my ability as a keeper, stood up to the wicket, to catch the ball, stump the ball. It took me 2 years to be very, very comfortable with Murali's different varieties of ball, the big spinning off spinner, the top spinner, the deucer that he had, just taking the ball away from the right-handed batsman with an off spinner's action is a real skill. But Murali was an absolute dream to work with. He was a dream to work with. If I needed to do some extra work, spot bowling on the middle, let's have half an hour in the nets where I can just read the way you're bowling, get used to your pace, get used to the line that you're bowling for which particular delivery. He was the first to do it, and at the end of our career, I was 98%, never 100% confident of knowing what ball was coming down, and I did that, Walt, by looking at because he was so accurate. I could tell which delivery he was going to bowl by the line he bowled. So it would be no point him bowling a deucer and bowling it outside off stump, because no one in the world is going to get close to it. So I knew that anything was outside off stump, 99% of the time would be coming in. It'd be an off spinner, or at worst a top spinner that was going to jump and bowl up. Anything pitched on the stumps, middle and leggish, I knew that predominantly would be a deucerer, because he'd be enticing the batsman to play, thinking it's an off spin and an easy one round the corner. It'd hold its line and come to first slip, come to the keeper. Maybe they'd run past it and throw up a stumping opportunity. But as a keeper, that's what you want, isn't it? That's
challenge.
what you want. We're wicket keepers. We love standing up to the wickets.
So you're telling me you're relying a little bit on instinct, a lot on reflex, but also the third element is hard work and understanding both the technique of the bowler and the line that he's bowling. So it's all that comes together. That must have taken a while to get sorted.
It did, and it did take a while with Murali, because he was so hard to read initially. But I did put the work in, and there's occasions where the batsman would topple over, and I'd think it was the deucerer, and it'd be the big turning off spinner that I completely missed, and I've missed it by 4 foot. The umpire stood there.
I was going to say, did he ever make you look a fool?
On plenty of occasions.
Did he?
On plenty of occasions, yeah.
No, it can't have been plenty.
But we had he was such a good guy. He was such a good guy that you felt comfortable. You were never berated. He never lost his cool, and he encouraged, which put me at risk. And I think we talk about wicket keepers and bowlers. You've got a relationship with your bowlers, because if you're confident enough, if I say to you, well, it's not swinging here, why don't we come a little bit and bowl at that 4th wicket? You'd say, yeah, I get that, and let's move the field a little bit. I think the bowler and the wicketkeeper have got to have a trusting relationship, to not telling them I'm wasting breath for the sake of it.
Wicket keepers are key men, aren't they? And intelligent keepers are even more so, because they have to communicate, as you say, with the bowler. They have to discuss things with the bowler, but the captain will come to you on numerous occasions as well, to ask opinion not only of his own bowlers but of the batsmen that are batting.
Yeah, very much so, and that goes for both red ball cricket and white ball cricket as well. If there's a cold period of the day where nothing's quite happening on a flat Old Trafford wicket, I think the wicket keeper's there to one, have an input to the skipper and the fielding unit, and two is to keep the lads from turning off slightly and just letting that session drift.
Talked about those 5 bowlers, 5 preeminent bowlers in Lancashire's past. If you had to pick one, a couple of criteria you enjoyed keeping against most. Who was the one you really enjoyed keeping to most?
Wasim Akram.
Because of the variety and the...
Absolutely, because of the variety. What he did with the new ball, the way he worked with the old ball, his aggression, his spirit and his fight, and his love of Lancashire. He loved everything to do with Lancashire. That's not taking anything away from the other guys, your Flintoffs, your Muralithrans, your Pattersons, because they were great bowlers, and I loved keeping to those as well. As I did with we mentioned, I just made myself smile, is the fact of probably keeping to Lancashire's biggest ever spinner bowler in the world, who spun the bowls the most, and also keeping to Lancashire's spin bowler who probably didn't spin it the most, in Jack Simmons. So I've had both sets of the spectrum.
Jack, no, Flat Jack we used to call him, didn't we?
Correct,
Flat
yeah.
Jack,
At the start of my career, he was great to play with.
Yeah, fun. Okay, so that the most enjoyable to keep to. Wasim, if you had one bowler to keep to, who you banked on winning the match for you, would that be Akram as well?
It'd have to be Akram as well.
Would it? Even more so than
even
Murali?
more so, even more so than Murali, because Murali could bowl a side out on a sheet of glass. He could spin it, but I think Wasim would give you that fear factor. There's a couple of players now, since we've all retired and we've all looked back on our career, and player in particular I think of is Mal Loy, ended up playing with us here at Lancashire. When the fixtures used to come out in December and January, he used to look, when he were playing Lancashire, both at Wantage Road when he was at Northants and here at Emirates Old Trafford, and he would absolutely panic from that day forward, not looking forward to playing against Waz. So great stories. How the batsman, feared the great man.
Let's just move on to your time in charge at Lancashire. It was a short period in charge, and you'd been around for about 15 seasons when you were asked to be captain. What was that like?
It was a tough period, Walt. It was a really tough period, 2002 to 2004. So three seasons I had as captain. Yeah, I think it was, I'm not taking nothing away. I loved being captain, but I think I was the only person in that setup then that could have, that had the criteria and the experience to take over at the time. So yeah, although I loved the period, I found it very, very tough. Concentrating on wicket keeping, concentrating on contributing as a batsman as well down the late middle order, and then having your press work to do, having the work that you have to do behind the scenes with the team, with the medical team. I found it really, really difficult. Although we did quite well. We did quite well as a team. That wasn't just because of my captaincy. We had a very good time where we nearly got over that final hurdle. But during that 2004 season, there was one pivotal point which said to me, you need to hand the reins over now. And we played against Warwickshire at an outground. It was I forget where it was, and I missed stumping Brad Hogg off Gary Keady, and he was 9 foot out of his ground, because I was thinking about the next bowling change and how we're going to get a wicket and what I need to do and how many we're going to defend on the final day. And I thought, that is the time then. No, that's not good for me, and it's not, what more importantly, it's not good for the team.
No. Very difficult when you've got all those things whizzing through your mind and all that responsibility as well. You finished your career quite quickly after you finished the captaincy, and you're within grasping distance of setting the all-time dismissals record for Lancashire. You're just a handful behind George Duckworth.
Yeah.
Did the records mean much to you?
No, they don't. Well, they don't. Because if you'd have said to me in 1986 when we walked into that dressing room that before you retire you'll nearly break the all-time Lancashire dismissals record, I'd have laughed. I'd have laughed in your face and said, if I get within 300, I'd have been happy. So no, records don't mean anything to me. George Duckworth is an archetypal legend of the club. You know, he'll always go down, and to get within touching distance of what he did, it makes me very proud. I had some great fun doing it. And you know, other great wicket keepers, Farouk Engineer. You know, Lancashire has always been blessed with good wicket keepers. It's in our DNA that the local leagues produce tenacious, cheeky, maybe annoying wicket keepers, and we've always been blessed as a county to be able to do that.
Just moving on, because you've had a variety of roles here at Emirates Old Trafford since you retired. You worked in the commercial department, the marketing department. You're now firmly entrenched in the cricket administration side of things, and you are very, very interested in promoting the past players and keeping them in touch. How important is that aspect of Lancashire cricket to you?
I think it's my most important role, Walt, to be completely honest. We look at that magnificent stadium we've got out there, with all the new hotel and the new pavilion, the new point, this beautiful P&M building. It's all about cricket for me. Those beautiful things wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Lancashire cricket and the years that we've had here in our heritage, the great events that have happened at this stadium on the field. And the great players that have played for our county. I think it's the one and only most important thing that we never forget that. We never forget that, and cricket always stays in the forefront. Amongst the other things that I do, that's my most enjoyable.
Yeah, you are. I think, you know, you might not sit down and think this or reflect upon it, but people, members, supporters, current players, whatever, think of you as Mr. Lancashire, which is a very nice thing to be. And you also are very keen on promoting and enhancing links with clubs and the leagues around the county. You think that's vitally important to the county setup?
Vitally important. Our links with recreational cricket around Lancashire, which I think on the last count we had over 320 clubs in Lancashire. So that for me is the breeding ground for our next players. We need to, as the mothership of Lancashire cricket, we need to be there to support these recreational clubs, to give them as much support as we can and get as many people playing cricket as we possibly can. Genders and anyone, more people playing cricket, because that gives us a bigger scope to produce our next Liam Livingstones, Andrew Flintoffs, and so forth.
Are you actively involved in that as part of your club remit?
Yes, a little bit, not as much as I used to be now in the Lancashire Cricket Foundation, but the Lancashire Cricket Foundation do a fantastic job in the recreational game, both men and women.
Okay, and how does Warren Hegg relax? On the golf course? Yeah,
very much so these days. Golf is my big passion. As you'll know, as professional sportsmen, when you finish playing cricket, you need something to fill that void. We were always very competitive. We were always looking for that next step to go up, and golf and business primarily were something that filled that void for me. It gave me that taking a screaming catch down the leg side off Wasim Akram. That's gone when you finish playing cricket. So
you need a sporting challenge, don't you?
You need a sporting challenge. So golf was my challenge. People say to me now, you're under pressure, you've got a 2-foot putt to make. I said, that's not pressure, that's fun. That is fun. So, but golf is the way. I love walking. I love walking with my family. I've got 3 great kids who are all sporty, so watching them and getting involved in their sport is something that I enjoy. And I'm watching recreational cricket as well. I've got no interest in coaching. I'm not a big lover of the coaching of the game. We've got enough great coaches here. They don't need me. But I love watching. I love watching the development of cricketers coming through and walking out onto that field like we did. To make your debut for Lancashire is a very, very proud moment, and it's great to see young kids coming through and doing that.
Warren, thanks very much. Your enthusiasm still shines through in all you do. You were incredibly enthusiastic on the field. You are still now off it. May I wish you all success in the future, and thanks for talking to us.
Thanks, Walt. Great to see you.